Welcome to the Strong AF podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Natasha Barnes. I'm a strength and rehab coach for climbers, and I blend my 24 years of expertise and experience as an elite level climber, competitive powerlifter, and rehab professional to bring you a podcast that will help you become stronger and more resilient. In this podcast, we'll talk about all things strength training for climbers. We'll also talk about climbing injuries, rehab, and why training and rehab go hand in hand. To connect, be sure to follow me over on Instagram at Natasha Barnes. To find out more about coaching or getting help with an injury, check out my website at natashabarnesrehab.com. And now, let's get to the episode. Okay, welcome back to the podcast. Today I have Jesse Firestone on the podcast, and we're going to talk about all kinds of fun stuff. Welcome to the podcast, Jesse.
Yay. Thank you.
Yay.
Good to be here.
This is our first time actually talking to each other than on each other's Instagram posts. So
Yeah. Yeah, slightly parasocial, but nice to meet you.
yeah, nice to
So it
meet
goes. Modern
you. Can
times.
you introduce yourself for anyone who might not know you from Instagram?
Yeah, so I am Jesse Firestone, rock climber and climbing coach. I live in Washington, but I've lived kind of all over the Northwest. So done a lot of like bouldering and bouldering development and sport climbing and a tiny bit of sport climbing development around the Northwest and done a lot of bouldering around the world. Um, and now I coach people all over the world too, like boulderers and sport climbers mostly. Yeah, been coaching. I just went like full time, not doing anything else earlier this year, which was a big step. But I've been coaching for like 4 years, and I was just trying to like grow my business, kind of on the side. And I've been climbing for I think 18 years, 17 or 18. I always get it mixed up, but yeah, that's in a nutshell. Unless you want like my bench numbers, I don't know how your podcast works.
Yeah, people are gonna be like, how much does he bench though?
Not much.
I mean, I think that's really cool though. I feel like I don't see a lot of other climbers, even coaches who promote lifting, like showing that much of their lifting. And I feel like you show a lot of your lifting, which is really cool.
Yeah, I try to, and like I think maybe I get positive feedback, especially now because I think people are used to it. When I started posting it more, I would get some people who were like, "Why are you posting your mediocre lifts over and over and over?" But that is why I was posting them because like most people are mediocre lifters. Like that's just normal, right? And I want it's kind of we've talked about this. It's like kind of important to me that people see that the value of it doesn't come from like doing something super sick. It just comes from being really consistent with it. And so yeah, it's that's probably my longest day of stories is like the day that I lift and record all my lifts at home because I'll always post like most of my good sets for that reason. So
Yeah, that's
yeah.
really cool. How long have you been doing that, like regularly?
Posting it, I don't really know. There wasn't like a conscious decision, you know what I mean? I just kind of it clicked for me. I was like, oh, I should like lean into the fact that I'm being consistent with this and other people relate to that. You know, I already post tons of climbing. Like people know I'm consistent with my climbing. So I don't know, probably I did with it last winter and like the summer, last summer. So probably like 2 years plus. I don't know.
That's how long you've been posting. How long have you been like lifting regularly for?
So I started like I got in with deadlift, like most climbers probably do, and that was in like 2015, after I like hurt my back and my neck pretty bad. And I was really lucky to get turned on to this gym where it was basically a gym run by like a this guy's an ex-pro athlete and he was like a PT and he specialized in like getting athletes back to sport. So I like basically went to that gym not knowing what I was getting into. I was like, I hear these guys are good and they wanted me to start lifting, which was, you know, of course the right thing to do. But at the time I was like, I just hurt my back. How can I start lifting, you know? And I had already done like a little bit before that, but that was the first time that I like had someone give me a plan and like tell me how much weight to do. And I showed up and like did it a couple times a week for like a long time. Um, I didn't really get into like bench and squat at that gym. I did mostly other accessory stuff for those patterns. So like bench and squat maybe consistently, maybe like 4 years, and then deadlift like I don't know, almost 10. You know, I did like starting strength probably in like 2010 10 or something like that, but I had no idea what I was doing and I didn't stop climbing at all. And I made like terrible gains and then gave up after like 3 weeks, like probably tons of people do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. It's not the best program. Although I that's how I started. I actually started with starting strength.
Yeah. I mean, it had a moment, I think, right? Where people were like, oh, I would like to start strength. That sounds good,
Yeah.
but it's not, it kind of got me through some of the fundamentals, but I agree. It's not like a great program. And it's, in my opinion, it's like it's pretty intense actually. If you're like climbing at the time, I was like climbing 5 days a week and setting 2 days a week. And like, I didn't need that much stuff. I needed to probably back off on all the other stuff.
Yeah, totally. I think it makes lifting accessible for people, and I do like the way that they teach and coach the lifts. I learned a lot from that actually.
Hmm.
And I used to work with like a bunch of starting strength coaches, so like I learned like their whole methodology of like how they coach the lifts and stuff, which I actually think is really good. Because there's a good like biomechanical basis for like why they have you lift a certain way. And everybody's a little different. Everybody's like preferences and anatomy is a little different, but I think
Hmm.
it's like a really good like starting point for
Yeah.
understanding the lift. So it's good for that. But yeah, I mean, the other thing that I think is good about it is, at least for me, I don't know if you had this experience too. You probably did, but um at a certain point with starting strength, you're just doing a linear progression. And so at a certain point, you're hitting
Mhm.
like V10 like every session
Yeah.
and maybe even failing lifts. And so for me, that it was really helpful to have that like anchor to know like where my limits were in terms of like pushing myself on lifts. If I hadn't done that, I think that maybe I would be more like some of my clients who like undershoot their lifts a little bit because I wouldn't have known.
Yeah. Getting into RPE, I don't know when that was in my timeline, but if you like plotted all my lifts, both in terms of the amount of weight, but definitely if you plotted it in terms of like my personal confidence that I know what the hell I'm doing, when I really started lifting by RPE was like a noticeable uptick in like how fast I was progressing. And then when I started, I just do fully auto-regulated. Like I basically never have set weights and a set number of reps. I always have a rep range and an RPE to hit. And I'll even like deviate from that if I feel like it. And like that was another noticeable uptick. Like lifting just makes so much more sense to me when I don't try to be really strict with it. And I guess that's maybe, I know that works differently for different people. That's probably like partly my personality and my like circumstances and stuff, but RPE is just brilliant, man. Like starting strength feels so like rules and like constrained.
Yeah, I remember going to the gym and being like, I would be like nervous all day because I'd be like, oh my God, after work, I have to go in and I have to squat like 200 pounds. And I don't know if I could do it. Like, because that was like on the plan. And I'm like, well, I have to do it. Like, that's the plan, instead of like what we
Yeah.
do where it's like, well, we're just going to warm up and see how the session unfolds and
See
like
how it goes. Yeah.
meet ourselves where.
Now, I almost do like the opposite now where like I use the Strong app. You know that app?
Uh,
It's like it's just a really nice like app to lay out a workout. It like remembers your order of exercises and all your warm-up sets and everything from last time. And you can like plug in different weights as you go and hit, and you can even use RPE on it. But it calculates your estimated 1 rep max for every set. And so that's kind of my mini game with myself is like if I feel really good, it's like, can I make my estimated 1 rep max really good for that session? And then I don't have to ever test it. It's almost
yeah.
like the opposite of the starting strength where they're like, you're going to hit this number today, like whether you want to or not.
Yeah, we're maxing out because it's your birthday. Put 5 pounds on the bar.
Yeah, totally. Like I don't need to max out now. I just like try to have a good lift and it'll be like that was theoretically a really good lift. You maxed out. And I'm like, cool, that's good enough for me. I don't need to like prove it except for like once a year or something.
I think it's good to have like something to aim for in a session, like maybe
Hmm.
match last week or try to go above last week if you can, and just
Hmm.
have it as like a goal, but like warm up and see how the session unfolds and just go from there. Um, but yeah, not having to like hit rigid numbers or like max out every time. I think it's also really important for people who are climbers that who like it's not your sport to like
Hmm.
pushing your strength numbers. Like we're just going in there to do it as like supportive thing for our climbing. And so we want to make sure that it's like we're meeting ourselves where we're at. We want to make sure that the training's like recoverable. We want to make sure that it's not like digging into our reserves for like our climbing sessions either. So
Yeah, I totally agree. Especially like I've kind of learned from working with people that where I want to get someone is like being a big enough believer in RPE and autoregulation that during the season they really back off on the maintenance days when they're like trying to put effort in a project or something, and they actually like take the RPE seriously. It's very hard to teach them that with like an in-season plan. I've learned like you want to start them in an off season and like really get them on like some kind of sine wave of adapting and auto-regulating. And then like they kind of start to understand what that's like, and you can actually get them to like notice when the bar speed changes and like what RPE 7 really feels like. And then when they have their next in season, it's like totally night and day. Like they can get in a really good maintenance workout and it might be like light or easy in air quotes, but it's actually like all they need that week because they're tired from projecting. It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard to learn all that during the season. And I also feel like when people just start doing it and they're in a season, it's like they kind of get excited for the lifting because it's like a new thing and they kind of
Hmm.
want to push that a little bit, but it's like, my guy, it's your season. Like that's not the goal. We're just maintaining here and like
Yeah.
this is for your projects or whatever to maintain.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You got to have buy-in. And like, I guess I don't know because you probably skew more of a power lifter than me, but I assume you have some clients who do like a pretty minimal amount of lifting, like when they're climbing more, right?
yeah, absolutely. Like I have clients do maybe like 1 day a week, maybe three things, and like that's it, you know?
Yeah. That's all you need sometimes, I think, for sure. Like for a
Yeah.
lot of people.
Super minimal, just like to maintain. And people are often really, really surprised at how well they do maintain, even when they're doing like way less than they think that they should. Like I'll have
Hmm.
clients like start their next like off season and they're like, oh my God, my numbers are like right where they were. I'm like, yeah, remember when you thought you weren't doing enough? Like, we're fine, right?
Yeah, that's good. That means your maintenance like worked. That's a really good sign for sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. Okay, so let's talk about some stuff that we have like outlined. I mean, I want to talk more about lifting too, but we can get to we can get to that in a second too. Um, Yeah, so I know we wanted to talk about like being a lifer and like
Hmm.
organizing your life around being an athlete. Can you talk more
Yeah.
about like how do we do that?
Yeah, well, man, easier said than done. And I don't know if it's like something you really wake up and decide one day. I don't know if it's really like a switch that flips, but I feel like you and I probably both have a pretty similar thing where like at first climbing just kind of was steering your life, you know what I mean? It's just like you love this thing and it just decides all your decisions for you and you're just chasing it. And then maybe at some point that thing you're chasing, like you start to realize it's not as sustainable as you wanted it to be. And if you want it to be a core part of your life, then you have to start changing other things in order to support it. And I think that's really like, to me, being a lifer is like that duality of like, it really is one of the most important things in my life, but also I need to have a life that can support it if I want to like, not just if I want to do my best, but if I want to be like a decent human being and, have some balance in my life. Because I tend to climb better when I do have some balance too. Like I climb better when I'm at home and I have like my family and my dog and my own bed and all that stuff. I love going on trips and I loved going to South Africa, but I couldn't climb at my limit there, like sleeping in a little bungalow. Like, I mean, maybe if I had gone there when I was 25, I could have gotten away with that. But yeah, I think it's just a question of like how much you're willing to sacrifice and also just making smart decisions to really stick with it for the long haul. Because unlike a lot of sports, like the timeline is crazy long. Like we have so much time, and I meet so many people who are like stressed about sending their thing this season or even like worrying about sending it like in their 30s, or I'll talk to people who are like 34 and they think it's over, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm 38 and I'm like not in the best health compared to a lot of other people, and it's definitely not over for me. So like I don't see any reason to think it's going to be over for you, like you got to just commit.
What do you think like got you there to that point where you're like, okay, like I need to change some things here because I do want to make this more sustainable and I want to be doing this for the rest of my life. Like what did it take to get for you to get there?
Well, yeah, the back injury that I had like 10 years ago was definitely a wake-up call. Which is funny because that I didn't even have that, I didn't get that injury climbing. I got it like helping to build a climbing gym. I was like doing manual labor and like lifting stuff.
Yeah.
But for sure, I was like way overtrained and was just climbing and forerunning all the time. And like, climbing played a role, even if it wasn't the mechanism of injury. But I had hurt myself before, but that was the first injury where it just took so long to come back from, and it wasn't just my climbing performance that got damaged. It was like my actual like attachment to my body. I was like, oh, this sucks, and it sucks all the time, and it sucks for everything. And not long after I hurt my back, I hurt my neck too, and then I like couldn't turn my neck for, like months, like a long time. And it's like I don't I hope that for most people that's not what it takes to figure that out, but that was what it took for me.
Yeah.
And I think there's been other steps along the way where I've kind of been like, oh, I've been pushing too hard here, and my body is like giving me feedback that it's not working the way I want it to. Actually, I think that's one of the toughest things about really like pushing close to your limit is understanding how much of that you can really take and how much of it you're willing to take in
Mhm.
order to try to get the thing you're trying to get. Like I don't think V13 is not really like that big of a deal anymore, I guess. But for me, in my climbing and like what I grew up with and what I've done in my career, like to climb V13 would be like incredible for me. That would be like such a peak achievement. And so like I'm willing to try pretty damn hard. Um, and like this fall, I ran myself really ragged trying,
Mhm.
but paid much better attention to the signals and like took, I was trying really hard in the sessions, but I was like taking 2 days in before and 2 days after and like not doing as good of a job with my lifting. So I'd have more energy for the project and stuff. And like, I kind of beat myself up. I think I've worked through most of that. It's been like a month or so, and I think I've pretty much cleared most of that stuff out of the system. And I'm like happy I did it. And I think that's being a lifer is just being like, yeah, I want to fucking try hard. I want to like really see how far this thing goes. And that there's something deep inside of me that's either magical or really screwed up or some of both.
Yeah, I mean, there's some give and take, right? Especially when it comes to like you personally performing at your highest level, regardless of like whatever. I know there's people climbing V17 out there, so like maybe some
Yeah.
people think V13 is like not a big deal, but it is. Like that's freaking hard, and
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
you can't just be anybody and come and climb like a V13. I don't care who you are. But like, yeah, I mean, there are some sacrifices that have to happen for like peak level performance in your
Hmm.
climbing. And I think it's really important for people to understand that too, that like there is some sacrifice that you have to make either in like a little bit in your health, a little bit in your mental health too. That if like during a season you want to be able to do that, like you kind of
Hmm.
have to be okay with like maybe risking getting injured, maybe not having a social life, or maybe being like a little unhappy in one area of your life, but you're pushing your climbing right now and you're gonna come back to balance like later on in a different season.
Yeah, for sure. I'm about to go to Red Rock with my wife for like a little like winter vacation thing, and like I've watched some videos, and I'm like, there's some things I'm kind of excited, but I'm like not driving the train towards any particular thing. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to hang out. I'm gonna climb some boulders. I'm gonna like chill in Vegas. I'll probably like drink a cocktail or two. If this is because I just put so much energy into this other side of it. And now I'm still going climbing, but it's definitely going to be different. And I think, I don't know, that the way that it's a lifestyle is just so, yeah, it's just totally all encompassing and enrapturing to me.
It's hard to like have that same mentality on a climbing trip. Like it's really risky to have that mentality on a climbing trip because you don't know
Hmm.
form. Like, and I feel
Yeah,
like for a lot of people, I see my clients do this sometimes where they're like, okay, I have the trip that's coming, and like on the trip, I want to do the climb, and like we can train for
hmm
it. Like,
hmm
everything they could have maybe even had some experience on that climb before, but like you don't know how the trip's gonna go or like how, like we can't just plan for like our epic high point in our life performance on a trip because you just don't know how it's going to be when you're not at home and you're traveling and like
for
weather
sure.
stuff.
Even a place you've been like a ton of times, it could be totally different. Like I've made some content around the idea of like pyramids in climbing. People use those as like a progression marker. Like if I've done this many of these grades, then I'm ready to do whatever the next level is. And like that kind of works sometimes, but like, let's say somebody is going on a trip to South Africa and, it's like, okay, let's make a pyramid of all the climbs that you've ever done when you were 4,000 miles away from home. And if you've never left the country before, that's going to be a really small pyramid. Like you need to accept that you're pretty much like starting from scratch because you're going to be in a totally different environment. Like, yeah, you're going to climb stuff, but yeah, I guess to go back to like the kind of dumb, we'll use the dumb me from like 12, 15 years ago or whatever as like the example for all this stuff. I was totally the person who was like, I've climbed one V9, therefore, if I drive to Bishop, I will climb my first V10. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, it's just like no matter where you are, you can always like plus one whatever you did before, It just doesn't really work that way in rock climbing.
Yeah, it really doesn't. And like even like the same kind of rock, like, I could go to Little Cotton Canyon and I've spent tons of time on Granite Yosemite and like not have the same experience there, Like
Yeah.
even that doesn't even encompass like the rock completely changing, like going from
Hmm.
red rocks to something completely else.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
so I think it's important to I think your approach of like going to Red Rocks and being like, well, we'll see what happens, Maybe you'll climb something hard, but you're not like banking on like, oh, I definitely have to get on Dream Time and I haven't climbed V13 yet, but I'm gonna do that one. Like
Yeah. Yeah,
you're
I definitely pivot to other stuff. Like I'll try to do things that are slightly easier more quickly, and I'll like have a little more serendipity because I'll like go where my friends want to go, and I'll be like, oh, whoa, like what is this cool thing that's like next to what you want to do? I don't even know what grade it is, but it looks sweet. And if I look it up and it's like a grade I think I can do without too much effort, then I'll like do it. And it's something I've never heard of before. Like I love those experiences. I think
yeah,
that like picking one thing and getting one-itis with it is like way overrated, and just like stumbling onto a sick boulder is like way underrated. Like it's
yeah,
just not as cool now for some reason. Like I always have people come to me with trips they want to go on, and they're like, I have this list of climbs I want to try, and it's like 400 things. Like you're not even gonna look at all those.
yeah,
It's like
there's no way
way
you
too
can get
many.
around to all of that, especially if you're going with friends and you got to go to their stuff too. Like there's no way.
Yeah. You've just transcribed the guidebook into a note on your notes app. Like it's not any shorter
I
than
love
the
the
guidebook.
enthusiasm, but
Yeah. It is cool to like try to tick stuff off or like try to tick an area like in the long run, but on a single trip, it's like if I'm gonna have a tick list for a single trip, it's usually gonna be like one thing, you
yeah,
know? Or
yeah,
like when I went to Joe's earlier this year, I was like, I want to try to do Beyond Life, and I would love to do like two more V8s because I was on the cusp of doing I was at like 198 outdoor V8s that I had logged. And so I was like, it'd be cool to get to 200.
yeah,
And that was it. And I had like 10 days or something. So I was like, that felt like achievable goals to me.
yeah. Totally. I feel like people are like, ooh, 10 days. I could do the whole guidebook. No.
Yeah, nope.
Because you're not accounting for rest days, weather, like, oh my God, you got a flapper on something and now you have to take time or whatever.
Yeah, that's actually another thing I was gonna say is like while I'm in Vegas, I'm gonna lift because it's my off season,
Nice.
right? So
Yeah.
like that cuts into how much I'm gonna climb outside. That's the necessary like sacrifice. And that is definitely that lifer mentality because now that I've realized my body just I can do more good climbing if I give up some of my climbing for lifting just because of I don't know. I mean, I think it's probably pretty normal, but I don't want to say everybody's like that, but I'm definitely like that. And yeah, it's the off season. So that's
No,
what I do.
totally.
I
I love
lift.
that you brought that up because I have clients who do that now where they're like, oh, like this isn't like a super important like in-season trip. We're just going on this trip and like I'm gonna continue my training while we're here and like people will
Hmm.
make sure they're doing that. I think that's definitely like lifer behavior and like supportive to like stay in
Yeah.
your season and like continue doing what you were supposed to be doing. Um,
Yeah.
love that you brought that up and that you're saying that you're gonna do that. Like let's normalize it.
Yeah. I mean, like, and we were talking about me posting my workouts on Instagram when I do them, and like I'll definitely be posting them from Vegas. Like, as long as I can am in a place that I can film them, I'll be posting them because that's when I'm showing that the rubber meets the road, that I'm like actually doing what I say I do. And I think that's important.
Yeah, totally. I think it's really hard for people to, well, okay, I don't know how it is where you are, but like in California, you can climb all year round. Like
Hmm.
every season, there's somewhere you can go that's going to be prime in like spring, summer, winter, fall. And so people fall into this trap of like, okay, in the fall, we're going here. In the winter, we're going here. In the spring, we're going here. Summer, we're going here. And like every season is like a performance season. And it's like,
Hmm.
maybe you can get away with that for a little while, but like at a certain point, I think we have to like realize that we need seasons in our climbing. And like that's how
Yeah.
we're going to keep climbing more sustainable.
Yeah, it's a really, really tough thing in a sport where you can just like keep changing venues and having having good conditions again. Like, kind of feels like you could do it all the time, and you can. And I think we see like these pros like traveling around the world, and we definitely see all their good times. We don't see as much of their downtime or their bad times, which I'm sure a lot of them have too. But I think it's hard to fathom that if you see someone who's just going hard all the time and they're climbing really hard, it's easy to think like this person is climbing V15 like 52 weeks a year. But to me, I see two things. Like number one, we're not seeing when they're not doing that, like I said. But number two, like maybe they could be climbing V16 if they just were taking more of an off season. Like 52 weeks a year, you're going to get 52 pretty good weeks. And that's like pretty good, but it's also not your best. And I want to do my best. And that means I have to give up some of those pretty good weeks so I can have like the best week. And I think that's just a really tough thing to come around to if you haven't been doing it for a while.
Yeah, I think so. And I think people are just get like kind of a little overstoker when they're newer at climbing too. And like maybe they haven't
hmm
had to suffer the consequences of not doing that.
It's
But
also just like it's so asymmetrical, and I think we forget that. And like this would be the same. It's not like deadlifting 200 pounds is ever easy, but it's probably easier for you than it is for me because you're stronger than me and you've done it a bunch more than me. And it's the same thing with climbing. Like we see like Keenan Takahashi or Jimmy Webb or whatever climb, they just their baseline is like V12 or 13, and it's you're just like, wow, they're doing them all the time. And they're like not that's not that hard for them a lot of the time. It's still hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's just kind of normal. It's like their baseline. And yeah, that's unfathomable when you don't climb those grades, but it is true for those people.
yeah, totally. I think people are like, well, they're climbing super hard all the time. And it's like, no, that's not super hard for them. Like they are
Yeah.
chilling out. And also, like you said, they don't like pros aren't putting on Instagram when they're having like a bad season or when they had a bad trip or even posting it all
hmm
necessarily. So
hmm
we don't get to see that side. And we just think like, cool, you climb V15 no matter where you go all the time. Like,
Nonstop. Yeah. We don't
yeah,
see like you don't see the down stuff, and you don't see when they're like not posting at all. And if people are really like legit resting, I feel like that's when they're most likely to not be posting, except for
yeah,
like the pros who are really social media is like a huge part of their life, like Shauna Coxey and stuff. Those people will definitely post when they're like on a beach somewhere. But a lot of them don't post that stuff.
yeah. And then we don't see it and we forget that they have lives outside of climbing and downtime outside of climbing as well.
Yeah. So yeah, when people ask me what I'm gonna do at Red Rock, it's like, I don't know, like hopefully have like a really good deadlift set, and like actually my squat's been going way better than my deadlift lately, but seriously, in my head, I'm like, I know that I'm gonna have at least like a couple lifting sessions, and I want to like have good ones, and I'm excited about that. Whereas I actually have no idea what things I'm gonna climb on. That's like totally open still, but I know what exercises I'm gonna do. It's
You're
kind of funny.
thinking about your lifts.
Yeah. It's
You
just the time of year where I get psyched on it, and I've been in my off season for long enough that I'm like starting to feel progress and like notice things changing, and that's always like the most motivating
yeah.
like phase for me. Because the first few weeks, especially because my season kind of got extended, so the first few weeks I was just like really just kind of kicking my own ass on a project and like trying to lift at the same time. And so as soon as I stopped doing that, I was like, wow, lifting feels great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, you were posting about that, how you were feeling like a little tweaked from your project.
Yeah, a couple. Yeah.
I think it was like a
Um,
week where you were like, oh, I kind of feel back to normal again.
Yeah, I'd say I'm like 90%. It's just a couple specific things. And I also spent the summer, I mean, speaking of like 52 pretty good weeks, like I spent the summer in Squamish instead of taking an off season. And I think that's part of the reason my fall season like ground me down so hard.
Mm.
Um, it's kind of like I'm still glad I made that choice because, I don't get to spend that many summers of my life in like magical places. So I got to take the ones I can get. There's not that much summers
Yeah,
not that many summers in your life, period. So,
many. Not that many. You got to take advantage. When are you going to come to Yosemite?
oh man, that's a good question. I was just talking to a client who climbs there all the time. Um, I don't know. I just haven't been there because of my dog, because it's like kind of hard to go to a national park when you have a dog. And if I was going to go on a trip to like Bishop or something, I would definitely take him, even though he's ancient. Um, so he's sleeping. It's really morbid, but I can say because he's sleeping. But when he finally does pass on, I'll probably go to Yosemite.
Yeah, it's
Because
hard to.
that's like the upside, is like traveling internationally is easier and going places like that is easier. So sometimes when bad things happen, I like to try to like pivot towards something good, and that, not that there's anything good about that eventuality, but it will happen eventually. And when it does, I'll go climb in Yosemite. So
Yeah, you can do something fun.
yeah.
Grieving.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. I do kind of hit it hard with the capital S stoicism sometimes.
That's okay. Yeah, it's hard having a senior pet. I feel the same with like my cat. It's like I don't really want to be gone for more than like, luckily he doesn't have to be on any medication right now, but like I don't want to be gone for more than like a night or two because like
Yeah.
I make sure he's okay, you know.
Yeah, for sure. You're attached. It's real.
He's getting old. He's getting up there, so
Yeah. They really are like mirrors for a lot of stuff. And like for so much of I mean, I've had this dog for like over a third of my life. And like for so many of my really wild years of like living in my van and like cruising around Colorado and California and like climbing a ton, like he was really rambunctious and crazy during those years, And so now to see him like so slow and just sleeping like 22 hours a day, I'm like, oh God, like where did it all go?
yeah.
You know, even though the timeline is very compressed, it's still like kind of alarming sometimes.
Yeah, it's like so I was just thinking about this the other day of like it's so interesting how we get to see our pets like entire life cycle. Like I got my cat when he was like a kitten. Like he was like
Hmm.
6 weeks old or something like that. And he went to Yosemite. He came to Yosemite when he was like when I first
That's
got him,
cool.
I brought him. So he's
Yeah.
seen a cap, he's camped in Yosemite, all of that. But yeah, he was a kitten and now he's like old. He's like 16 and like I don't know. My parents like both passed recently in the last 2 years and like um I was kind of like the silver lining of it is that I didn't have to watch them like decline or like take care of them or like, all of that like that happens when we get old. And I feel
Yeah.
really lucky that like I didn't have to watch my parents decline or like take care of them as they were declining or like have a whole drama around it. It just sort of just happened and then it was over. And but that's definitely not what's happening with my cat. It's like
Yeah.
I'm watching him get older. I'm watching him like stuff happen to him, and it's like, yeah. It's just it's something for
Yeah,
sure.
you can like love them and but you can't help them very much.
Yeah.
Whereas like with a parent, like you can help them. You can definitely love them, but like the communication doesn't always help you help them the way that the lack of communication with a pet is like, all right, well, I can't tell what's wrong with you or what's going on. I'll just love you and hug you. And that's the whole relationship. And like I don't know. I think you said something on this, but I've been like setting up a little like staircase for my dog to try because I really think it's his back legs and his lower back, that needed like some therapy because we don't really have any hills here, so he's not going like up. And I think going up seems to be like helpful for his legs, his back
Yeah.
legs.
You were doing
And so I've
rehab.
been like I've been trying to like rehab him, and I don't even know if that's like a thing or if I can do that. It's just like
Yeah.
so natural for me as a coach to just be like, well, when I used to like mountain bike, I could tell that he was getting better at like running longer distances. He clearly adapts the same way that like a human does. I think probably way better than a human does. Like I don't think they have the aptitude for like hypertrophy that people do, but they clearly have other adaptations. So like why can't I like exercise him? I can't get him on a leg press or anything. Like I can make him go up and down.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I've thought about that with my cat. I'm like, oh my God, if this was like an older parent that I was living with, like I would teach them how to squat or like I
Yeah.
would do like some strength training or something. And like when I moved in my house now, we have like a lot of stairs and I'm like, good, now you're gonna have to go up and down all the stairs and like do some
Yeah.
exercise. Like
Yeah. It's crazy. Like it's such a you know the movie They Live? I know that's a little bit of a
yeah.
oddball. Okay, it's like this movie where this guy, there's aliens basically, and he gets these special glasses where when he puts the glasses on, he can see like which humans are actually like aliens. It's like a super cornball movie from the 80s. But I feel like once you really learn about strength training and how it works, and once you've like coached hundreds of people and seen them respond to strength training, it just so totally reshapes the way that you see the world and the way that you see like people age. Because now when people are like losing their independence or like struggling with different things, like almost no matter what the thing is, if it's related to like age and physical decline, it's crazy for exercise not to be part of the solution.
Yeah.
Like, and you just want to like grab people and like shake them and be like, what are you doing? Like, you need to go to a gym, like get in a gym, you know? But you can't do that. You just know, you just put the glasses on and you see everybody doing this and you're like, yep, go get your, yeah, laser therapy. That sounds great. That sounds really cool.
I love this
Uh,
analogy. I haven't seen that movie, but it
yeah,
definitely is like the perfect analogy for that. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, it's hard to watch. Even like my friends who are like around my age or a little bit older than me, like that don't strength train, like I'm watching them decline. Like I'm watching health, like I'm at the age where like this is where health stuff starts happening to people. And
yeah,
watching my friends like get more unhealthy because they're probably not even listening to this podcast. They don't like strength train, you know? And like maybe because they're too scared of it or they don't have someone who can like help them with it potentially.
hmm.
Um, but it's just really hard to watch because I'm like, oh my God, like you would be feeling so much better if, and like my sister, I have an older sister who's like, she's 50, how old is she now? She's gotta be like 54, 55 now.
This isn't the
Um,
DJ, right? Is
no, no,
she?
no, no.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was
that's
gonna
my
say,
brother.
damn, that's sick.
No, my sister who's a JJ is 40. I'm 41. I have an older half sister who's like 55. And like last time I was down in Southern California where they live, we were going up the stairs somewhere and she was like, oh, I can't, like my legs feel like jello or like my legs
Hmm.
hurt or something like that. And I'm like, that's not good. Like that doesn't get better. Like that actually gets worse. And like
Yeah.
last time I was down there, she was telling me that she was having like some knee pain or something, and they were gonna do like some injections or like I don't know, she went to like some doctor and I was like, why don't you just like try squatting? And I like taught her how to do some air squats and I made her do like 10 or 15 air squats and she was like, oh my God, my knee feels better already. I'm like, I know,
Hmm.
like keep
Yeah.
doing it. She's like, what if it gets easier? I'm like, you have like some dumbbells over there, like grab them, like do it with some dumbbells. So every time she like complains to me about like her knee, I'm like, have you been doing your squats? Like,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
so empowering.
yeah. I'm like, you can do something about it. Like, and I think we're just really lucky that we were exposed to strength training. Like you got exposed at that clinic, which is really lucky.
Hmm.
Um, I got exposed like in a similar way. Like I had like a bunch of shoulder injuries. I had a bunch of like finger tweaks is like how I first got into like the job that I do now, rehab.
Hmm.
But then I had a bunch of shoulder tweaks that just like, you know, rehab wasn't fixing, like or the traditional PT wasn't fixing. And I just sort of had this intuition that like strength training would help. And that's kind of how I got into it and then got hooked on it and obviously like turned into a power lifter. But um
Yeah.
it helped so much. And like a lot of stuff that I was feeling in my body, like my shoulders, my upper back, like my upper back would hurt if I had to like sit and do like computer work for a long time. And now I'm like, I tell people like I can sit like a jackass on my computer like for hours and it doesn't matter because like I train my body and I can just handle that position now and it's fine, you know?
Yeah.
I feel really lucky that I was like exposed to that and that it helped so much. And like that's literally why I'm so passionate about talking about it with people and like having people do that as part of their rehab programs. Like when I rehab with people, it's usually not just like, oh, it's your elbow or it's your shoulder. Like let's just work on that. And like actually let's do a reconditioning program. Like you've never strength trained before. Like this is something that's gonna benefit like your whole body. And a lot of
Yeah.
my clients get into it after doing rehab with me, kind of like what happened with you with your back.
For sure. And it's like I'm obviously 100% not a doctor or any kind of medical person at all, but because I work with climbers, I'm like constantly fielding questions about tweaked knees and like finger issues and like, you know, all the stuff that's really common because I'm the expert that's in that person's life and they have this thing and so they want information about it and like I'm very careful never to like make prescriptions for anything, but it's crazy. Like number one, if something's not that bad, often loading it is like not only the thing you're going to need to do anyway, but it often makes it like feel better unless you're like directly after trauma, like you were saying with your sister's knee. Like, and if I wake up with a weird pain, I kind of like give it some time because a lot of time it just goes away. But if I evaluate it and I'm like, this really does feel like a joint or a tendon, like especially if it feels like something like that, like I'll just figure out some isometric that loads it and just like chill there until it feels better. And a lot of times it just goes away. And
Yeah.
like it fucking blows my mind that in, PE class, in like physical education class when we were kids, they were like teaching us the rules of badminton. Like they should have been teaching us like what an isometric is versus a concentric and an eccentric and like, what the different like how your scapula moves on your back and like those kind of things that feel like they actually matter, and like if you could take badminton class if you like really wanted to learn badminton.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been so much more helpful. We're not really given like a handbook on like how our body works, you know? So like having that skill or that knowledge that you can do that. And often like if you're showing your clients that and they do it and it helps, now they have that, like they're empowered with that information. And the next time it happens, and this happens with my rehab clients too, they're like, or even my regular coaching clients, they're like, oh, so last time when this hurt, we did this. So this other thing was kind of bothering me. And so I did that. And like it actually really helped. And like before they even tell me about it, like they're trying to
Yeah,
troubleshoot. Like, oh my God,
that's
so
cool. Yeah. Yeah, and that leads to the second thing I was going to say, which you kind of alluded to also, which is like when somebody comes to me and they're like, my elbow's really been bothering me, or like I just had a guy like hurt pop a pulley basically, or like minor pulley sprain. And like when somebody gets a minor pulley sprain and we already have them lifting, I'm like, sick, dude, your lifts are gonna blow up.
yeah.
Like it's just purely a good thing. It's just like, yeah, you just like won't climb on the moon board for a little while, but like your bench is gonna be sick. Like,
You can
and you
redirect.
just yeah, you just go somewhere and like natural history will take over, You will load the pulley too, for sure, but like most things just resolve by themselves. And if you just pay attention to other stuff, a lot of it will go away. Like I did do specific things to try to like heal the tweaks that I brought home with me from that project. But also I think just not trying the project for a while like is also plenty. I kind of experimented with loading because I'm like into it, but I think if I had just stopped trying the project and gone back to my lifting, it all would have cleaned itself up too. So it's hard to really know which thing it is.
Yeah, sometimes like some loading helps with stuff like that, but sometimes it's like, well, just like take a break on the project, especially with
Hmm.
like a swimming project where you're doing like the same weird position over and over and over again, or like a really kind
Yeah.
of tricky thing that you never train and you have to do it for the project. Like it makes sense. Your body's going to be feeling weird after that. And sometimes there's stuff you can do to prepare yourself for that, but sometimes it's just a really weird position and like you're doing it over and over again and like your body's
Yep.
not. So that's where breaks come in.
In this case, it's like 22 moves or something. And I like counted at some point, I can't remember. It's like 22 moves and like 12 or 13 of them have a right heel hook. And like the right heel hook at the end in like the red point crux is like really intense and super high. And it's just like, yeah, I'm gonna get stronger and I'm really gonna try to train those ranges specifically for next spring. But I'm also fully accepting that like I'm just giving myself more runway and it's totally possible that I'm gonna need to like go back into the hole in order to try to send it. I'm gonna like do my best, but it's just really intense and I'm 38 and like I'm not gonna my hamstrings aren't magically gonna be like 10 times stronger in spring. So
I mean,
I might take some abuse. That's what the strength training's for.
speaking of which, because we planned on talking about this a little bit, and you made a post about it today, or at least part of a post about it. Gyms
Hmm.
having like machines. Like, wouldn't it be nice
Hmm.
if the gym had like a hamstring curl machine? Like, there's no other way that you can get such a good concentric, like high
Yeah.
intensity your hamstring. Like, I mean, you can do like lowers, you can do like a dumbbell pinch between your feet or something, or like bands, or
Hmm.
like I guess some cables, but like nothing hits. If you've I've never been on a hamstring curl machine, like nothing hits it like a hamstring curl machine. It's just like so
For sure.
ergonomic and you can try really hard and it feels kind of like a heel hook. Like
Yeah,
I think every gym needs at least a hamstring curl machine.
for sure. And I think like I've kind of fiddled and like I haven't gone like deep on a seated hamstring curl. I've probably done like 10 sessions or something. But the lying one seems like way more similar to how my leg feels when I'm heel hooking. So if you're a gym owner listening to this and you're really invested, lying hamstring curl. Get the lying. Go, don't none of that bullshit where it does like a bunch of different stuff. You know what I mean? Like a lying hamstring curl machine.
Yeah, my gym has both, and the manager was like, I think we're gonna get rid of one of them because we want to make room for like other machines. I'm like, no, don't get rid of any of them. Like,
I think people just like the seated one better than the lying one because it just feels weird to lay down on your belly in the middle of a crowded gym.
yeah,
That's my guess.
it's definitely more of like a vulnerable position, but they're both good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think maybe it's just because the lying one, it's like easier for me to get like into a really deep my hamstring's more stretched at the end than it is on the seated one, or at least it feels like that to me because like you're not flexed at the hip, you know.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I thought I read some research somewhere, at least for hypertrophy, that the seated one is like supposedly better, but like
Mhm.
I think they're both good and like they definitely both feel different.
Yeah, hypertrophy is good too, for sure. Yeah, we like that.
I
Yeah,
really
machines are badass. And to go back to the kind of like we were talking about like RPE and how I think you kind of just have to know what kind of person you are, but like maybe more rule follower, engineering people, maybe you want to like lift on a more linear kind of way and like more bouncing around hippy dippy people like me want to like auto regulate a little bit more. The machines, if you're the kind of person who needs to just show up and like try super hard and not like stress about doing it exactly right, the machines are
yeah.
so cool. Cause like I don't directly train my wife, but I help her with some of her training, you know, and like whenever we're like squatting or whatever, she's like, am I supposed to be like this? Or should this thing feel like this? Am I supposed to squeeze this? And I'm always like, I don't know. I don't know. Like just try hard. Like, I don't know. Cause like I'm not a super experienced power lifter, so I like don't know what's right for her. And I just want to like keep adding weight until she kind of figures out what's right. But with a leg press, it's just like, yeah, you just make the weight go away from you and then like control it while it comes back to you and then like make it go away from you again. It's like not that complicated.
You just try really hard. You just bend and unbend your legs.
Yeah, there's nuance in the setup and like, you know, holding the handles to like pull yourself into the seat and all that kind of stuff. But like the basics of it, because the range of motion is so controlled, like the basics of machine are awesome. And also for time purposes, like, you know, she's a teacher and I coach a lot of busy people in similar situations. Like, if it's selectorized, so you can just like take the pin and like move the pin on the machine, I think
Yeah.
that's really amazing for time.
Yeah, super easy. You don't have to spend time loading and unloading the bar. And like, yeah, just like the cognitive load, like taking some load off, not having to worry about if you're moving exactly correctly and like all of that is really nice for machines with machines as well. And like
Hmm.
you don't have to do like a squat. You don't have to do like a deadlift. Like you can do machines that train the same body parts and get just as good of an effect from that for sure. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
for busy people, machines can be like a really, really great option.
Yeah. I love it. Love machines.
Yeah. Why do you think I have a question? Maybe you have an opinion on this. A lot of the pushback that I get on strength training for climbers is people saying like, well, like we don't see like the pros strength training, so like we don't really have to do it or like we don't need to do it. Like, what do you think about that? Do you ever hear that from people? And like, what do you have to say about that?
I think we just kind of, first of all, our sport's really young. And second of all, I think we kind of delude ourselves because of the lifestyle sport thing that I was kind of talking about earlier. You know, you can like sort of do it all year. And we just sort of trick ourselves into thinking that because we can do it all the time and there's no game to show up for, it's not a competition, you know, unless you're competing. But like for most of us, it's not like we just sort of think that we can, you know, skate on by and that climbing is like all the stimulus we need. And I think there's a lot of like different factors that go into it. Like I'm sure that there are top performers that have never set foot in a weight room, especially for sport climbing, I would guess. I think for bouldering, that's probably becoming like slightly less true. But the big the big things that really sell it to me are like longevity and genetics because we're really not in control of our genetics and a lot of the people that we see doing stuff at the top of the sport in terms of the like longevity thing, they are not thinking about how long they're going to be able to do it. They're trying to fucking send it right now. And like even those people like Toby Roberts had a whole breakdown on his like road to the Olympics or whatever. And there wasn't very much weightlifting in there, but there was some weightlifting in his plan. And it, you know, I don't know if it looked like the most effective thing that he could have been doing, but he was doing it. You know what I mean? And I think that sh is that's like a sign that things are starting to move in that direction in climbing. And I think it's just very nascent, but more people are going to be doing it for sure. I would say like 20 years from now, the people who are winning all the World Cups and stuff are definitely going to be like training in the off season because you just can't take that abuse like week after week, year after year without having serious issues. Like Anna Storr, I don't know how much climbing you watch, but like Anna Storr is like a legend. She was like one of the most dominant female competitors until Yanya came along. And like I've heard that she like her back is like really hurt and she like mostly sport climbs now and stuff because she just took so many like huge falls. And I'm sure that tons of other, I don't mean to call her out. I'm sure tons of other athletes are in that same situation from that era, just like yeeting themselves onto the pads over and over. It's it's hardcore. Like people just are delusional, I think, if they think that it's not hardcore.
Especially with the way that comp climbing is going and like the shit that they have to do, like,
Yeah.
on top of just like regular climbing too. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was I
So
was
if
having
you're
action. Like when I was like climbing professionally, a competition climber, like I was starting to get injured like that too. And like,
Mhm.
I think that like another few years I would have been in the same boat.
Yeah, it's good that you kind of like got away from that. And I feel the same way. Like getting really dialed with my training and focusing more on strength training has like for sure given me a lot more like room to run in my climbing. And I think it's not like things were over or whatever, but I definitely would have been like going back down. You know what I mean? My grades and performance would have been going back down if I hadn't gotten into strength training just because I would have been spending so much time injured if I
Yeah.
was trying to try hard. And it's like goes back to the lifer thing. It's like, well, I could switch to just climbing 5'9" in the mountains, or I could like just climb one time a week, like recreationally on 5'10s in the gym, or I could like maybe just try sport climbing and like not ever boulder, but like none of those things are going to give me the like performance like obsession that I really crave. And so they're not options. So I've found something else that works
Yeah, totally. I think
just to
that
strength
people
train.
don't realize that that's the trajectory that people are on, and like the people that we're seeing performing at a high level right now that maybe aren't doing it, it's like, yeah, they're trying to perform right now and they're worried about
Hmm.
right now. They're not necessarily thinking about like long term, but they might be on a burnout trajectory or like an injury trajectory if they're not doing that. But I do
Hmm.
think it's coming around. Like I do know a bunch of people who climb like V14 and above that are starting to get into strength training or that do strength train. And so I think that it's like starting to catch on, but I always tell people to like, you have to realize that like professional athletes are willing to sacrifice their health for performance. And like,
Yeah.
that's okay in the short term. And like for you, maybe during a performance season, but like, you don't want to sacrifice your health for your entire career, like just for performance. Like, we want to
Yeah,
I'm okay climbing a grade less if it means I'm going to be climbing for a decade longer. Like,
for
honestly.
sure. Every
But
person has to make that call for themselves, for sure.
yeah,
And like probably I don't know. I don't know if we're just kind of straw manning because I haven't seen anyone like lay out a real argument against strength training. I think it's just kind of like a thing you hear that it's like a waste of time or that your legs are going to get too muscly or whatever. But I've never really heard anybody like do a good job of explaining why it's not a good thing for climbing. You know what I mean? That's kind of why I think people are coming around to it.
yeah,
But like as a totally non-scientific example, on my intake form, I have like a couple questions that are like, what's your history with strength training? What's your like height and weight and what's your diet like? How many like injuries are you dealing with? Like how tweaked do you feel? How's your recovery habits? And I haven't actually gone through and like done the data, but in my head, I every time I read an intake from an athlete, I kind of cross-reference all those things and like if somebody has a lot of history with strength training and they're eating plenty of food and they're like what I would consider on the like maybe more body mass side of things for a rock climber, the chances that they're dealing with a lot of injuries or dealing with a lot of tweaks is just fucking low. It's very rare that the people who are dealing with a lot of shit are also like jacked people who strength train all the time and eat plenty of food. Like the one exception would be like some of those people wind up having a lot of finger issues, but I think that's like mostly genetics. I don't think there's a ton we can do about that. On the flip side, if somebody's like, I'm super light for the grade or super light for my height, and I'm like climbing really hard and I've never done any strength training, there seems to be like a slightly higher chance that they're going to be complaining about having a lot of injuries. This is not causal like science or anything. It's just, like 1,000 like data points or something that I haven't even actually put together. But I've noticed the trend over the years and it's a real thing. And that to me is enough reason to like try to get people to do it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, anecdotally, also, I've noticed a similar trend. I wish we could study it, and maybe we will in the future at some point. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's definitely like a trend that I've noticed, and I think it's starting to catch on in climbing of like, yeah, more longevity, strength training, less of the like under eating and like staying skinny. Although that's still definitely like a thing. I think
Yeah.
people are coming around to the other side of it of like how much better you're going to feel, how less injured you're going to be, and like how much more longevity you're going to get out of your climbing if we're not doing those things and we're actually like taking care of ourselves. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And like this is probably the last thing anybody's really that like interested to hear, but like I think it's just fucking fun. Like I
yeah,
just squatted like not that long before this call and I was like, like pushing really hard and like trying super hard and I love a good deep squat set. It just feels good. Like I'm not even that good at it. It just feels good. And it doesn't feel as good as like climbing V12 or whatever. I'm not saying that, but it's just a different thing. And I think people are like, oh no, what if my legs get big? And I'm like, yeah, but what if it's fun? Like, I don't know.
no.
It's okay to be into other stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's literally how I got into powerlifting. Like honestly, it was nice to have like something fresh to like be excited about, something different to train for,
Mhm.
like a different experience. And it's nice to like bounce back and forth between like climbing, like focusing a little more on climbing and then focusing a little bit more on like powerlifting. I think it's healthy to have like other things that you can like switch to, especially if like mentally climbing's not feeling good. Like I've had times where
Mhm.
it's been really hard to want to push myself climbing for whatever reason and like I can switch over to powerlifting or focus on something else. I think it's nice to have that for people.
Yeah, you have like a more resilient identity. And I think I said something about that in the post I made today. I was really slapdash post, but it makes me feel like more of an athlete. So like getting into strength training, I was like, oh, I'm a real athlete. I'm making my muscles bigger and I'm trying to get stronger so I can like do a thing in a sport instead of just being like I'm living in my van and like I go to the coffee shop and then I like go like crush really hard on boulders and that's a serious thing. But then right after that, I'm not an athlete anymore. I'm like back to hippie guy. And like now I feel much more like a real athlete. And that's why I'm like going to a gym. I do 2 lifting sessions a week plus some accessory stuff. And like going to a gym for one of those main sessions just so that I'm in a gym pushing fucking hard around other people who are trying to make themselves like stronger and healthier because that's a different feeling than being in a climbing gym. Like if you're in a climbing gym and you're like pushing really hard on a bench or a squat or whatever, like respect, first of all, but also like most people are probably looking at you like, what's that guy doing? Instead of like you feeling like you're in with like-minded people who are trying to do the same thing you are.
Yeah.
And that's just been like really good for my identity. Like I feel more like that person now than I feel like the young kid who's just like, yeah, V10 or whatever.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's a really important point that you bring up. And yeah, I mean, I remember like getting my first major climbing injury and having like an identity crisis because it's like that's the only thing you do and now you can't do it. Like
Hmm.
really bad like A2 pulley rupture. I just couldn't even climb on jugs, like nothing. It was,
Hmm.
um and yeah, I had like an identity crisis. I was like, who am I? Like all I
Yeah.
do is climb. I don't like know how to talk about anything else but climbing. Like I can't even have a conversation with someone if it's not about climbing. Like when I was
Yeah.
like in my 20s. And like yeah, just branching outside of that. And we did I don't know if people listening have seen like Park Life. But it was a climbing film that I was in with a bunch of other people that we did in Yosemite, which was really fun to film. But I remember like they interviewed all of us in Park Life, and every single person that they interviewed was like, yeah, climbing's my life. I don't see myself doing anything else. Like, I want to do it. I want to like only climb and only focus on like climbing really hard for the rest of my life. And I was like the only one who was like, climbing doesn't feel like everything to me. And like that's why I decided to go to school and like do something else because it felt like I don't know, it just felt really weird to have my only worry be like, where are we climbing today? And like what's the weather, you know?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
I'm sick
That
of that.
takes, you have to be vulnerable to do that, I think. And like, I also think I've met very few people who are like, yeah, I'm just cool with climbing like 5'10", you know? But I used to meet those people and think, well, that's lame. And now I meet those people and I'm like, that's sick, dude. Like, you know where you're at and you're like happy with it. And it requires a comfort with being vulnerable that I think most people don't appreciate how hard that is to just be like, yeah, this isn't everything to me.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's something that I mean, first of all, every time you post a climbing thing, I'm just like, your technique is fucking badass still. Like you were a stellar rock climber, which is really good for people to see, I think. But also it's just cool that you switch back and forth between the two things and you don't feel like you have to like be super duper sick at both all the time. It's okay to like, take it one day at a time and like kind of see what you're psyched on. I still think that it'd be cool to see you like come back to climbing and like crush some hard stuff, but obviously that's up to you.
I would love to do that. I'm just kind of waiting for the Stoke to grab me, and I got
And when are
pretty.
you gonna go to Yosemite,
I know
Natasha?
I've been there so many times, but yeah, I mean, I think I was getting a little more stoked in like 2021, 2022, because I had like a really good climbing crew, and like I was starting to get really strong again. And then the crew kind of like everyone's schedule changed, and like now I climb by myself, or like I'll meet up with friends sometimes, but like I don't know. I wait for the Stoke to grab me and it just hasn't yet, but I would love, love, love to do that.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm also like, I don't care that much. And I have, like, I tell people it's hard for people to like grasp this, but like, I have fun climbing not that hard grades.
Mhm.
Like, I can have so much fun, especially I was talking to somebody at the gym the other day. Like, I'm like, I love a sandbagged V4. Like,
Mhm.
give it to me. If somebody's like, nobody's done this before, what the hell? I'm like, give it to me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to figure it out. Like, that kind of like challenge is so fun to me. And like, I think it comes from climbing in Yosemite where like you are gonna get shut down. Like, nobody can come to Yosemite, even like pros, and like climb double digits like their first trip there. Like, you're not gonna do it
Mhm.
because granite is really technical. Yosemite, especially if you're climbing like in Camp 4 or something. I mean, I'm sure people have done it and it can be done, but like you have to be like a technician to climb there and you
Mhm.
have to have good conditions. And so climbing in Yosemite, like I got shut down like the first time I went there. And
Mhm.
like I could have definitely been upset. And I've actually been there with like pros and climbed. I won't name any names, but like they did get upset and they did throw fits and they left. They couldn't handle it. Um, but I was just like, okay, like I suck at this. And like this is a challenge like I'm willing to take on and like I'm gonna get good at climbing here. And luckily I was able to climb around a bunch of people who had been climbing there for a while and some short women who were like really inspiring, like climbing there, who I still know in this area. And so getting to like see them like figure out like interesting beta and like getting to climb with them and like learning how to get really technical on rock like that was like such a game changer for my climbing. Like
Mhm.
my grade level didn't necessarily level up. I mean, it probably did because like I started climbing like V10 and 11 in Yosemite, so like anywhere else probably would be a lot
It's gonna be
harder.
easier. Yeah.
Yeah. But like my climbing skills got so much better. And then also like my mental ability to be like, oh, that's a V4 that nobody can do. That's really hard. I'm gonna avoid that. Instead of like having that mindset, I'm like, I'm gonna figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
how is
Yeah,
this?
that's awesome.
Like, I'm gonna figure it out and like I'm gonna because you can learn stuff from that. And I feel like that's the thing that people like forget sometimes is like there's a lot to learn from stuff that's like below your pay grade.
Yeah. I mean, that's like where we can make so many analogies back and forth between like weight lifting and climbing and like that's where it starts to break down is like the grades are so arbitrary and it really is all about like having the ability in your body, like having the muscular recruitment and the coordination to like figure out how to solve the problem. But even once you've figured out how to solve it, like it's totally indiscreet. It's not like a specific thing when we say it's V whatever, especially because you're how tall are you? Like
I have
foot
two.
5'2"? Yeah. So like who knows? Maybe that V4 was put up by a person who's a foot taller than you. You know, that's like a very real possibility. And so what you do might not even be what they did. And that part of the sport is really maybe fascinating. And I think it speaks a little bit to like this thing that I've been kind of hooked on lately, which is like if you're not frustrated or you're not feeling like a little bit awkward, maybe you don't have to be outwardly like awkward or frustrated, but if you're not feeling any of that, then you're probably like in your comfort zone. And that's like another reason that I've been lifting at the gym is because I just feel a little bit more like a noob. And I know that means like the gears are turning and like I'm picking things up. Whereas like if I just lift in my garage, like I love lifting in my garage, but I'm comfortable there and I'm not like pushing myself to be challenged and like do different things. It's the same reason I've been climbing in the gym, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I find it very awkward and frustrating. And I know that that means it's good for me.
Yeah. Yeah,
Can't hold on to anything, god damn it.
there's a lot of like intangibles that you get from like being out of your comfort zone. Like even if it's just going to the gym and not climbing on your board, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the board is like the ultimate tool, and also it's just such a salve for that like awkwardness because you can just set your own problems and like put on the music you like and like only pick the holds that you want to climb on. And yeah, it's a really easy way to just stay fully in your comfort zone for sure. So
Yeah, totally.
yeah,
Um,
tricky.
that makes me think of the article that you wrote. I don't know when you wrote it, but I think you posted about it recently about the non-physical. What was the title of that? Non-physical.
Non-physical factors in climbing performance. It was like my thesis basically. I was trying to like lay out how I think climbing progression works. Probably needs to be revisited. But yeah, it was a couple years ago.
It's so interesting though, because like I feel like people will look at like my climbing and be like, "Oh wow, like you deadlift X amount of weight. That's why you can climb that hard." I'm like, "No, no, no, no. Like literally
Yeah.
not. Like I did all of these other things, which is a bunch of stuff that you talked about in your
Hmm.
article that made me a better climber. Like all
Yeah.
the physical things, which there's a lot of them in climbing. And one of the things that I like tell a lot of my clients is like, we don't need like a fancy program for you, actually. Like,
Hmm.
there's a lot to be gotten out of just being a little more intentional with your climbing sessions
Yep.
and being a little more intentional about like how you're approaching climbs, getting out of your comfort zone and like stop climbing your flash grade stuff all the time. Like, can you stuff like that? Like, there's so many
Yeah.
of those things that like are gonna make your climbing better. And I like how you said that like the strength is really just like the very top of the pyramid, actually. And
So like the reason I put it there, because I think this is important for people to, I don't want to cut you off, but I think it's
yeah, no,
important
go.
for people to know why. Because I do think strength is really fucking important for the
Yeah.
record, and this has been misunderstood. It's just when you're actually climbing something hard, or like when you're actually standing, when you go to Yosemite and you're like standing under Thriller or whatever, and you're like, I'm gonna try to do this thing, like you can't you can't take it with the approach of I will leave and strength train for 6 months and come back to the boulder. So it's like, what do you have that you can make use of while you're there? And in that sense, I think thinking about strength is just not very useful. It's like what we should think about when we're in our off season or like planning our training or whatever. But when you're actually at the boulder, I think people think about their strength way too much because you
Mhm.
can't change it really. You can change your coordination. That's a different thing.
Right. Yeah, I think it's really easy for people to be like, well, I just need to be stronger. Or like, if I was
Hmm.
just doing this, I could do this move. And it's like, is it really like actually that you need to be stronger? Or do you need to get more coordinated on that move? Do you need to figure out a better body position? Like literally, you're pulling on the wall with your body like 2 feet away from the wall. Get under the
Hmm.
hole, then pull onto the wall. Like
Yeah.
you get stronger.
It's There's like a correlation. There's for sure a correlation between strength and grade, certain types of strength, and a correlation between like finger strength and grade. But like I've met so many people who are climbing like, 512 or like V7 and they can max hang the same amount that I can. And they're like, I really want stronger fingers. And I just want to be like, my dude, your fingers are strong in at least the metric that they use for all the studies, right? So like let's figure out what it is that you actually want to do with your fingers and figure out what that adaptation is and how to train it for sure. But also like we need to start talking about some of this other stuff because like it's like blood from a stone at a certain point. Like max hangs are just not going to cut it. If you've done your whatever, like 5 or 6 training cycles with max hangs, like you're probably doing pretty good there and you could probably like focus on something else.
Yeah. Like if you're newer to climbing and you've never trained in a structured way, your fingers, like, yeah, there's a lot to be gained there. But like
For
the
sure.
longer you've been climbing or the more you've already trained your fingers, like the less there is to be gained there. When I do like block pulls or the edge lifts, like I can pull like
Hmm.
insane numbers on the edge. Not super insane, but like not Allison Invest insane, but like I can pull like really big numbers on it, like bigger than like some of my clients who are like
Yeah.
trained more than I am for
I'm
climbing.
sure, especially with a pickup, because you can deadlift like a motherfucker. And like a pickup on a 20 millimeter edge is basically a proxy for how much of your strength that you have in a lift pattern you can get through the edge, right? Which is like kind of finger strength, but
Yeah.
like we're not deadlifting up the wall, generally speaking, right? So it's a little bit a different thing too.
Yeah, totally. Like knowing how to deadlift and being strong in a deadlift is going to help you on an edge pickup for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and
But like,
your genes.
yeah. Yeah, and I can do that and like but my fingers still feel like I need them to get stronger on the climbing wall. And it's like I'm doing bigger numbers than some of my clients who are climbing harder than me.
Hmm.
Like, and I
Yeah.
still feel like my fingers need to get a little bit more coordinated on the wall. So like for me, it's like I don't need to be doing like edge lifts. Like they're fun to do and I like doing them sometimes and like it's fun to pull like a big number, but like I
Hmm.
need to be doing something more like wall crawling or like crimp stuff or just climbing on some crimpier stuff to get that coordination with my fingers back or
For
get some
sure.
forearm conditioning. Because for me, if I'm not climbing regularly, like I just get pumped. Like I can climb for like a couple hard climbs and then I'm like pumped and I'm like, okay, that's the end of my session. And
So
that,
so if I turn can I turn the lens of the non-physical pyramid on you for a second? If I was going to use the logic that underlies it on you based on this conversation, which obviously is like we haven't really gone into depth, so I'm making some assumptions, but just based on the brief thing you said about where you're at in your climbing, I wouldn't worry about how your finger coordination feels. I would say like where are you going to find your crew or like who's the people
I,
that you used to have really good connections with that you can like link back up with and get your motivation back from that social side of things because the social side of things is further down the pyramid for me. Because if
yeah,
you can get that piece, you'll fucking figure out how to make your fingers stronger. But if you work backwards of trying to make your fingers stronger, you're not going to be like psyched to go to the gym because you don't have the people that like make you really motivated to be there. And that's the kind of thing that I'm thinking when I put this pyramid together is just like you want to there's an Albert Einstein quote which is or it's attributed to Einstein which is problems can't be solved at the same level of awareness that created them. So like if you think it's a finger strength problem and you try to solve it there, that only works if it's genuinely a finger strength problem. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And like I sort of know that, so that's why I don't try to work on my finger strength and like
Yeah.
I just need to like get a crew and like I can make it happen if I really
It's like really it's genuinely hard to just be like, I don't have anybody fun to climb with, so I'll just invent those people out of thin air. Like it is
yeah.
way easier to train your fingers for sure.
Yeah. Like that I can do on my own. I don't have to rely on anyone, like don't have to coordinate anything.
Yeah.
Like but yeah, you're totally right. Like having for me that would be like more of the root of the issue
Hmm.
than trying to work on finger strength.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think
Exactly.
like you said, it's more tangible, I feel like for people. And like
Hmm.
it's easier, it's an easier solution. It's like a cleaner solution. And so I think that's where people go to like finger strength or strength training even to be like, that's gonna fix it for me. And
The
it's like,
proximate solutions for sure. It's like I grab the hold, I don't feel good on it, therefore I will like go make my fingers stronger, and that'll solve the problem. But like if there's other stuff breaking down in the process, like their tactics aren't good or they're not well recovered or whatever, then the finger strength thing can solve the problem for sure. But if you want to like send the hardest thing you're ever going to send in your life or like get close to your genetic potential, that's just not thinking meta enough. You got to go further down the
yeah.
stack.
That's something I see a lot with people. It's like, oh, I just my finger strength. They're like, I don't know. They have like a lot of reasons, and then I start working with them, and I'm like, talk to me about how you're approaching that. And it's like
Hmm.
they have like the worst tactical awareness ever, and I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
like this is the problem. Like you're not projecting it well, and like I think if we just work on how you're approaching it, work on some of your tactics, I think that's actually going to be what makes you send it. And like we don't need to do finger training or like simulators or like deadlifts to like get you there, you know?
Yeah, just be a little bit smarter with the actual session for sure. That's like you can keep going back to that so many times, and I find as I get invested in these like really big life projects over the last like handful of years where I'm like really trying to like not just trying even to get better anymore, but trying to like do things that I'll be legit proud of for the rest of my life, like some of the best badass most badass shit I'll ever do, you know? I need different tactics for like every one. I can't approach them the same way every time. And that's actually really cool because it's like a meta game of not just like how good are my tactics, but like how fast can I figure out what I need to do in order to get good at this project.
Yeah.
And that feels like, yeah, that feels like cool. Like I'm really expressing myself as a climber to like figure that shit out, you know?
So do you feel like being a coach and having to identify that in other people makes you better at figuring that stuff out for yourself or
Yeah, ooh, I do still do the same dumb shit as some of my clients for sure because I'm human. Like, going like 4 weeks or whatever, it's like 3 weeks too deep on my project this fall. Like, that's totally the kind of thing where if my client was like, yeah, so my lifts were really bad again this week because I spent 5 hours at my project on Saturday, I would be like, what the fuck are you doing, bro? But when I do it, it's okay because I'm the coach. Um, most of the time I think my tactics are very solid, but like yeah, I have my brain farts for sure and I make like dumb mistakes and like I went to Waco like I guess it was like 4 years ago now, but I just went for, a short trip with my wife and showed up, wasn't planning on trying this thing, tried it anyway, like jumped to this hold and got a tip flapper like on day one. And I was just like, I didn't even want to do this climb. Like, why, like, why did I do this? And yeah, so it's hard to avoid like that kind of mistake for sure. But yeah, I'm mortal, and I think that actually, as a coach, I think that maybe endears people a little bit. It's kind of like the fact that I like squat and bench like not really that much. I'm just like a dude. You know? Yeah, I'm just a guy, just a normal guy.
Yeah. I feel like that's normal though. I mean, like unless you're a power lifter, it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Or if you, I mean, I guess people follow people on Instagram. It's like, yeah, that's like a fitness influencer guy. Of course, he squats 4 plates or whatever. Like
Hmm.
he power lifts, like duh. But like normal people don't because
Mostly don't.
they're
Yeah.
not squatting 3 days a week plus doing supplemental lifts that help their squat and like doing powerlifting blocks. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and like Instagram is really good at bringing out the freaks for sure. Um, I was gonna say on the like tactics thing, I don't know if this was something that was really in the list, but like one thing that is different about me, one thing where I'm not a normal guy is like I have like super low energy availability because I have
mm,
issues with digestion and like immune stuff. So for a lot of the last like 8 years or so, I just haven't been able to eat that much food. So I go through these periods where like I can eat normally and train normally and I like gain weight and then my body like goes all haywire and I like lose a bunch of that weight. And then I can't eat normally and it's like hard to get weight back on. But one side effect of that, as fucked up as it is that my tactics and my abilities to like make a try really, really count are super good because so like I work with a lot of clients where they're like, I had 3 hours at the boulder, so I tried it like 632 times and I didn't do it. Whereas like if I know I have 3 hours at the boulder, I'm like, okay, I have 8 good tries. So I can take the amount of time it takes to get ready for a try and like divide 3 hours by 8, and like that's how long I'm gonna rest in between each try. Or if I think I have 5 good tries, then I'll divide 3 hours by five, and I have no problem doing it that way. And I try to like shift people towards that more unless they're trying to like deliberately build capacity or like do more climbing. I had a client who had a really great spring season, and it was just because we had a conversation where I was like, "Look, dude, this isn't the gym. Like, you should be resting 20 fucking minutes in between tries on this thing that you're trying." And he just applied that logic to like everything else he tried that season, and he started sending everything like back. Like he had like by far the best season ever because he was just climbing like he was in the gym. And nothing wrong with that. Like nobody had told him, like you're outside, like take your time. You got all the time in the world, you know?
yeah, yeah, that's really important. I mean, especially like if you're giving burns on a project or something, like there's literally no reason to hop on right away again. Like
Yeah.
you're not training, you're literally trying to perform. So,
Yeah.
yeah. That's cool. I mean, that's cool because that's like our affordances, right? Like I feel like when I was climbing in my 20s before powerlifting, or even in my 30s before powerlifting, like I just wasn't very strong, like point blank.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think people look at me on Instagram, they're like, holy shit, like you're a hoss, like you're fucking strong. Of course you like powerlifting. I'm like, no, 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 no. Like I'm not strong. I'm just really fucking persistent. And I stuck with powerlifting for like 11 years and like
Hmm.
have maybe missed a handful of training sessions in 11 years. But
Actually, for how fucking good you are, 11 years does not even seem that long. Like from the outside, you know what I mean? Like
yeah, I mean,
you seem
honestly,
very good to me.
thank you. But like I'm an athlete, so like I focus and I'm
Yeah.
intentional, I train. But like I'm not a strong human being, like by any means. And I feel like I really had to like I couldn't do any pull-ups when I first started climbing. Zero. Like I don't think I could do pull-ups until I started climbing like V5s or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, so I had to really take advantage of like my finger strength, which I do genetically have like stronger fingers, at least than the average person, and take really good advantage of my technique and like my tactics. Like I
Hmm.
feel like that's something that has carried my climbing really, really far because I just wasn't strong enough to do it. And so I had to technique my way. I had to figure out like more efficient beta, or I had to figure out like better tactics to send something because I'm not going to last very long because I don't have like an athletic base and like I didn't train anything other than climbing, was never athletic before climbing. And so like I have to do it fast. And I was also a comp climber. And I always tell my clients like being a comp climber is like kind of one of the best things for your climbing because in competition, you need to see the beta. And not only do you need
Hmm.
to see the beta, like you need to have a plan B because if you get there and it doesn't, the situation is not what you thought it was, you're not going to jump off and be like, hold on, let me figure it out. Like you're on the
Yeah, you're
clock.
gonna try.
You need to fucking send it. So you need to have a plan B and like you might need to have a plan C or D. I'm like, when I look at climbs, I'm trying to flash them and I'm coming up with like, I'm looking where the crux might be for me. I'm going to come up with a plan A or plan B. And I'm trying to send it as fast as I can because like that's how I was trained as a comp
Hmm.
climber. And like I think that works to my advantage because like
For sure.
I make every go count. And like I'm thinking about like a plan B if it gets there and I get to a hold and I'm like, ooh, this hold was not what I thought it was, or like this body position was not what I thought it was. I have another plan. Like, I don't even have to jump off the wall to think about it because I already went into it with that plan. And so like I had to do that though to be like a good climber because I just wasn't very strong and like I didn't have good capacity to like try forever and forever. And so I think that stuff really works to like our advantage actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's way easier to do that early in your career and then come around to like being more strength focused for sure. I think that's why you can hop on the wall and look really elegant still. If you have like a really high natural level of strength or you've like done a lot of strength training and then like try to apply elegance to it, it's a lot harder because you have to like almost turn off a lot of that intramuscular coordination and like use less of what you have available. But when you only have a little bit, it's like you learn how to maximize it for sure. So they're both tricky things, definitely. But one thing you said the word affordances, which I think is a great word, is just like knowing what you have to work with and like what you're good at and like what things you kind of have in your corner. And like I think my 20s for me with climbing was like all about learning how to play offense, like sending it all the time and just like trying really fucking hard and like really working for it in a very climbing oriented way. Whereas most of my 30s has been about like learning how to play defense, like how to rest more and how to like take care of my injuries and how to like train correctly and how to like back off and do other things besides focusing on performance in order to make my next like time I'm playing offense better. Because if you just play offense all the time, you like definitely take more risk. But if you learn how to play like some defense, you can like come up with better plays when you're playing offense. And that's kind of the same thing that you were saying, and like yeah, that's a very hard thing to suddenly get good at. It takes like, I'm retrospectively realizing that that's what I got good at over the last chunk of years for sure. But man, it's just game changing. I think bouldering is so addictive and so like instant feedback that people really they want to keep hopping on and like interacting and engaging with it. But it really, really pays to be patient and like step back from it and like think it through because if you have to touch the wall every time you're going to get information from it, it's just way more expensive in terms of energy and skin and stuff than if you can just sit there and like puzzle it out and try to get more information from it from the
Yeah.
ground. That's a really like underappreciated part of climbing technique for sure.
Or just even watching other people, like watching
Hmm.
other people climb. I'm like, if you're resting, you could be watching people climb and like you could learn from it. Like, what
Yeah.
did that guy do right? What did he do wrong? Why did he fall? Like, you could be actively
Yeah.
learning like while you're sitting there resting.
In my course, I have like just a slide where it's saying like when you it's talking about like the angles that you grab holds at, and it's saying like when you watch videos of people climbing on the thing, like watch the angle that their forearm is at. Like is it like plumb to the ground and they're like hanging on friction, or are they like pulling out on it? And if they're pulling out on it, like where's their elbow? Like what angle are they pulling out on it? And like that was the thing that I got the most feedback from people on because they immediately all like went and watched videos and like were watching what people's forearms were doing. And it's just like it's the kind of things you pick up over a long career, I guess. But like, there's so much to be gleaned, not just from like what holds people are grabbing, but like what they're actually doing with their body in the stuff that you watch. Like, video beta is insanely popular now. But I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are even watching videos, but they're really just learning the sequence. They're not actually like seeing what's going on, because there's a lot to see.
Yeah,
Climbing's just fucking cool like that.
you can learn so much from watching those videos or just like, yeah, just watching other people at the gym. I'm like here in my at my gym, I'm like infamous for like being able to find out tall guy beta. Like I'll be working a climb with a guy who's like 6'2". I'm 5'2", and we'll be climbing together. And I'll be like, why don't you just do that? And he'll be like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, just put your foot here and do that. That's what I would do if I was your height. And he gets on, he'll send it, and he'll be like, what? I'm like, yeah, like I'm just looking at your body. I'm looking at you on the wall, and I'm like, it makes sense
You
for
can
you.
do it, yeah.
Why are you doing this other thing? Like, and like I'm not his height. Like I don't know how, I don't have any experience being that tall, but I can just look at him climb and see his body on the wall and know that like this other beta is going to work better for him. Like, and people
It's
are like,
awesome.
how can you figure out like tall guy beta? I'm like, you just watch people climb. Like, but
It's just it's just wishful thinking. You're like, well, I just want that extra foot, so I know how good it would be if I had that extra foot, so I know what the beta would be. It's just like
like I'd
logical,
rather
right?
just be backstepping that foot. Why don't you just backstep that foot? And they're like, oh,
That's hilarious. Love it.
yeah, there's so much to learn just from like watching people climb and not just for like the sequence or whatever. Like actually watch what they're doing with their body and like why it's working or like why it's not working. And like that's a really
Hmm.
easy way to practice getting better at climbing without any like physical, like without getting tired or having to donate skin or whatever.
Have you have you found as a 5'2" person that like the value of strength training, because I know you've like trained a lot of people too. Do you think that the value of strength training is like more evident with people who are like particularly short or particularly tall, like they come around to it faster?
I think so. And every climb is different and every like situation is different. Like there's definitely climbs where like I'm gonna have an advantage.
Hmm.
But for the most part, like yeah, like I'm having to climb way more extended. I'm having to like pull like much harder to get to or I'm having to climb like more spanned out. So like being stronger definitely helps me in that
Yeah.
situation. Being able to like dyno further, like being able to jump with my legs, all that kind of stuff. Like definitely, honestly, I feel like it's like a secret weapon if you're short, like being stronger. You just have to be a little stronger for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we have some science to support that conclusion also.
I think Lattice has some data on that, right?
Yeah, like a bell curve of like if you're average size man, you maybe don't need as much, and if you're like shorter or taller, you maybe need like a little bit more
Yeah.
strength in order to hit the same grades. But it's still all grade based, which is very kind of maddening, but that's the best we got. So
Yeah, that's the best we got. It's a hot topic for sure. I try to avoid talking about it too much on Instagram because people get really upset. But
yeah.
I'm like, come on, you guys. Like, there's a bell curve, and if you're in the middle of the bell curve, like
Yeah,
you're in the middle of the
for
bell,
sure.
like
I mean, I'm a 5'10" +4 man, and I have no like misconceptions about the fact that that makes the sport easier for me, but it really only matters from like a if you're worried about the like grade-based validation, if you just accept that who you are puts some genetic limits on what you're going to accomplish anyway, and your job is not to like achieve the absolute greatest. Your job is just to achieve the relative greatest thing that you can achieve for yourself with your body and your constraints and your history and your genes. And like for me, I did really good with some things in the genetic lottery, other things not so good. And I think it's a lot easier to notice that somebody's 5'10 plus 4 than to know that they're like struggling with digesting food and like can't keep muscle on. And so people, it's like, yeah, it's just really tough to know what people are up against. But I'm just trying to do the best I can with what I got. And I'm pretty happy about that
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, everybody has like some struggles that are more visible than others, but
for
yeah,
sure. Yeah.
that was a very like soundbite thing that you just said.
Clip it.
Cool. Okay. We're getting into like an hour and a half here. I feel like we could keep talking. We should probably do another one of these, maybe one that's like a more structured topic, but it was fun to just kind of riff. Um, okay, I have one last question for you. If you could leave the listeners with one piece of advice for elevating their climbing performance besides getting stronger, what would it be?
Hmm. I think we covered some really good ones in this show. I mean, I really think stepping back from the wall and like thinking about what you're doing is so important. And in the course that I've been doing the last like 2 weeks, check it out now. No, it's called the Principles of Problem Solving because I kind of tried to reduce the stuff that I think works best in climbing down to like a few key principles. And by the way, I did not expect to be vamping this right now. It's just actually a genuinely good answer to the question. One
Yeah.
of the principles is intention is everything. And I really think like getting stronger will only matter if you are being intentional with the way that you apply that strength. And like intention is in that same way, like a really good lens for everything else that we try to get better at. Like if you can't focus on what you're trying to achieve and like really analyze the task at hand effectively, then most of the rest of it really doesn't matter. So in terms of actually getting good at that, I think it really does come down to mindfulness. And so if people are already ticking a lot of the other boxes, I think just getting more in touch with their thoughts and feelings and like what's going on in any particular moment is a really effective thing to chase down if they haven't. Um, Otherwise, just yeah, try to be very deliberate with your choices and pay attention to what you're doing. Easier
Yeah.
said than done.
Easier said than done, but I think that's a valuable piece of advice. And that's unfortunately something I see really common in the climbing gym is like people just throwing themselves at the wall without really like thinking about what happened or like
Hmm.
even remembering their beta on their last go. I'm like, what did you do? You did something completely different every single time you got on the wall. Like that
Hmm.
tells paying attention.
Yeah, concrete thing. I'll leave people with something concrete they could do. If you heard that and you were like, ah, that's me, fuck. Um, I have a drill that I call hard style visualization. And the way it works is you run through your whole sequence in your head before you get on the climb. So this would be like something you're trying to red point or like a project. If you don't already run through your sequence before you get on the wall, that would be a good place to start, just practicing that. If visualization is really hard for you, you might want to start with just trying to do like 4 moves and like visualize those moves and do those 4 moves. So you want to like build up to it. But if you're struggling with like remembering your beta and you do have a visualization practice, run through your whole visualization and then get on the wall and try to execute it. And if you hesitate or you deviate from what you visualized, drop back off the wall and start over. And that's why I call it hard style because it's very frustrating. But what you want to do is tighten that feedback loop between practicing it in your mind and executing it on the wall. And I totally agree with what you're saying. You want it when you're on sighting, you want to be like ready to do different stuff and like and respond to the situation. But with red pointing, it really is all about like tightening that connection. Um, and you can practice that shit. And if you force yourself to push through it and like make mistakes, sometimes that's good for sending. But if you want to become more intentional and good on the wall, for sure you want to get better at visualizing.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really easy one that people could implement like immediately. So
It's a great drill. It's very frustrating.
yeah, but I love that because it's like the negative reinforcement immediately
Yeah, for sure. You're like, ah, fuck, I didn't do it. I'm back down again. Yeah,
makes
it's
you
fun.
learn
I
fast.
struggle. I even struggle with it. It's not easy
Yeah, yeah, it makes you learn fast. I love that.
for
Cool.
sure.
Okay, where can people, I mean, obviously you have a lot of resources like your workshop. Can you say more about that and like where people can learn from you, where people can find you, where people can maybe get coaching from you?
Yeah. So jfireclimbing.com, Jfire climbing.com. And I'm at Coach Jfire on Instagram. You post my stuff sometimes. People might have seen it. And the course is called Principles of Problem Solving. So if you go to my website or you find me on Instagram, you'll find links to it. And it's the second one is live in 2 days. So I think this will probably come out like after the second one's already out, but people can still take the course after it's done live. And then, you just won't be able to ask me questions like live on demand, but they can still DM me stuff and whatnot. Um, and it's a lot. It's like genuinely insane how much knowledge I packed into this course. It's basically like I tried to condense 20 years of climbing into a few hours. So
That's really
it's
hard.
yeah, I'm not kidding. I think it's like it's the hardest thing I've like ever done in my climbing and coaching was to put this thing together. It was like an insane amount of work to try to make it all make sense. So I'm really proud of it, and I think the feedback has been good, and I think there's just a lot for people to learn in there. So I do genuinely think it's like a really cool thing.
Yeah, I haven't obviously seen the course, but I love everything that you put out. I love your
Thanks.
writing. Yeah, I love how thoughtful you are about climbing and just everything that you have to say about it. So I'm sure that course is amazing. So you guys should definitely check it out because there's probably a lot to learn. Probably something you can watch a bunch of times and get something out of. So
I think so, yeah. I just did the first one last Saturday and somebody already messaged me. It was like, I was rewatching it and I like I was like, sweet, dude. That is
love
how
it.
you get your mileage for sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, thank you. Thanks for the nice words. Let's go climb in Yosemite sometime.
Yeah. Hopefully not anytime soon.
I don't think I'll be there anytime soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got many years ahead,
Yeah,
hopefully.
totally.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for being on the show. We'll probably do another one, but we're going to end it here, you guys. Thanks for listening.